We're tracking for you. The death of 4 children at the hands of their father shook a community of Pinetown in KwaZulu-Natal. In the town of Clarinet in Mpumalanga, the story of a mother poisoning her 4 children had the same shocking effect. Now, during both of those trials, details of the motives behind these murders emerged. 44-year-old Sibusiso Mpungose and 24-year-old Zinhle Maditla killed their children, claiming they felt betrayed by their respective partners. Now, for more on the story, we're joined in studio by Paula Quinsee, who is a relationship expert, and by Dr. Dimakatso Maboea, who is a psychologist, to unpack exactly what is behind these crimes. To both of you, thank you very much for coming into studio. I think, Dr. Maboea, let's start with you. These 2 stories are just sort of a snapshot of a number of similar stories we've seen in South Africa and perhaps around the world as well over the past months, years. It's a difficult thing to take in and understand.
True. And I think when you look at what happens is that most of us don't know what to do with endings. I think once you call an end of a relationship rejection, you are telling yourself a truth, but perhaps it's not a truth that empowers you. I talk to patients about 2 types of truths: truth that will empower you to do something, or truth that will disempower you. So the minute you say, I feel rejected by someone, a lover, it's almost like you're assuming that someone is doing something to you that creates pain. But if you're working with it as this is a relationship coming to an end, you are able to label it an end and then respond accordingly. I'm not saying there won't be any pain, but I find you then work with that pain very, very differently.
Paula, particularly, I think perhaps, just how we're raised in society, it's even more difficult when it comes to a mother killing her 4 children. When that understanding is difficult, it's more difficult with a woman.
Yeah, I think people get to that point where they become so helpless and hopeless as to what their options are and how to deal and handle these situations, particularly women. Because, we're always taught or conditioned growing up that, women must be gentle, must be kind, must be loving, the caregivers, all those kind of things. And to now start seeing some of this coming out, and betrayal in a way of, I had someone in my life that I can't rely on or depend on anymore, being the father of the children, my husband, my partner, or my family or support structures or things along those lines. And they get to that point where they're just at a loss as to completely how to cope and deal with situations like this.
So, Dr. Maboea, how do we cross over from I'm heartbroken, I feel rejected, I feel worthless, to I'm going to kill my children?
So, it's about that utter helplessness that stems from feeling betrayed. But I also think it's about not knowing who I truly am. Some of us define our worth, or we attach more meaning to life when we live it with the other, and we lose complete meaning of life, and that's why it becomes easier to then end everything. So I think most of us, before we even enter relationships, perhaps it's useful to kind of imagine your life alone with the kids, and imagine your life with a partner, so that if an ending happens, not a rejection, if an ending happens, I'm still able to see a possibility of going on with my life. I often say, part of preparing for a relationship is exploring those possibilities. When patients come and say, I'm ready for a relationship, I say, well, have you imagined your life alone? Because it's a different happiness, it's a different sense of fulfillment. So once it's possible to see my life without the other.
And to be fulfilled on your own as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you've journeyed with yourself and you love yourself fully, it's difficult. I'm not saying there's no mourning, there's no loss, but there's also that hold that you can still have, a grip that you can have that says, I can go on. So it brings that lining to that, that silver lining to that very, very dark cloud.
So Paula, this is an interesting thing, because Dr. Maboea is talking about, being whole as a person on your own. And I don't get the sense that that's related to a particular age group. These 2 examples that we've been talking about this morning, Zinhle Maditla, the mother who poisoned her children using rat poison, she's 24 years old. And then 44 years old, the man, Sibusiso Mpungose, who killed his 4 children. So this this notion of being fulfilled as a person on your own without a romantic partner, it doesn't seem that it's age-related.
No, it's not at all. And, you know, as we go through situations, particularly endings, whether it be through death or other means, we all cope with grief differently. We all deal with grief differently. And it's how we are equipped. That's, first of all, that sense of self and self-concept and self-theory in terms of how do I deal with emotions, my own, what I'm experiencing, and then how do I express that outwards versus just sort of internalizing it. And using healthy coping mechanisms to deal and process versus negative. Often we turn to negative coping mechanisms such as substance abuse, whether it be alcohol or drugs or other means. And it's about how do we equip ourselves, whether it's through support structures, actually seeking help to help us deal with and process through the grief, rejection being one part or component of that, to be able to work through it and know that if this feeling is not forever, it's only a for now thing.
I don't think that we've still answered this question of how you go from that devastation to taking another life, even more so the life you were meant to protect.
So it's transitioning, and most of us, you know, I say there are journeys you can work on your own in life. So transitioning from I'm no longer with myself, I'm no longer in a relationship, to I'm on myself, I'm by myself and fulfilled. There's a bridge we need to build, because and we can only do, this is where it's helpful to get other people to help you start building that bridge that can help you cross to the other side. And how do we build that bridge? What are the lessons I've learned from this relationship? What did this relationship show me that I need to heal? So it's not a journey that most of us can do alone, because remember, Michelle, love on its own, it's very healing. Love gives us a sense of security and a sense of belonging and home.
And it's not that movie love. I mean, there are challenges in relationships.
True. So when we lose that, it's a great loss. But I'm saying there's an identity migration that can happen from I'm worthy because I'm in a relationship to I'm worthy because I am me, irrespective of where I am. But often that bridge, that's where counseling becomes helpful. That's where support becomes helpful. It's not a bridge most of us can build on our own. We often need other people who have maybe gone through similar experiences, or professionals, or whatever, give us a source of resilience that we can draw from.
Paula, that question of how you go from what may be a monumental loss in your life at the time, the loss of a partner through infidelity, whatever the case may be, going from that moment to actually taking the lives of your children, I can't make that connection.
Yeah, it's a very desperate journey in terms of getting to that actual point of no return, where you actually form or participate in an act like this that has such finality to it.
Might there be something connected to the financial aspect that's involved with being, now I'm a single mother who will be raising these 4 children on my own, for example?
So, look, there isn't one reason. Even the same person did it. There could be multiple reasons. So in some cases, yes, it's just utter helplessness and not having the resilience within yourself, or the lack of preparation that I spoke about for a life. But in some cases, there are personality makeups that also contribute to us making those kind of decisions. If I see, let's say, a person with a narcissistic type of personality makeup, if I see my children as an extension of myself, if I die, they die. If so that personality makeup will make you relate to people in the world as if they were extensions, and will make you look at endings as if there's something that is being done to you. And that's why we speak of a narcissistic injury and a narcissistic rage that then unfolds. So sometimes it's helplessness, but sometimes it can come from a very deep sense of rage, because and then when you look at the psychopathic personality makeup or an antisocial personality makeup, they will kill for different reasons. They will kill because you are an object, and I derive pleasure from objectifying you and having total power and control over you. So there isn't one reason that even the same person could be doing it. So I think personality also play a role there. Our earlier attachment as children. So if the first person most of us attached to, if is our mother. So if that attachment is not secure, and later in life I find it in a romantic partner, you can understand that's a huge, huge loss. I'm devastated, and I get to such a point of despair that I don't see this was the special person that gave me, that filled a hole sometimes that I wasn't even aware. So there are multiple reasons.
Just as a parting shot from both of you, we've come to the end of this interview. I mean, we could spend all morning talking about what is a really complicated issue. But I want to just link it back to the particularly high levels of femicide and violence against women and children in South Africa. There's something about the country, there's something about our consciousness as a country. I mean, how would you link the trend with that we are seeing around the world? It's not just a South African trend, but it is very high in South Africa. Paula, let's perhaps start with you.
Yeah, I think it's an educational process that first of all starts not only at home but also from a society level, in understanding that violence is not right on any sort of moral perspective in terms of our constitutional right. And so how do we start at home educating ourselves in terms of our children and ourselves that violence is not condoned? And then from a society point of view, we need to take all of those stigmas and those labels away across all the spectrums. It's not just women and children, it's also the LGBTQI sectors, as well as men too.
There's the issue of masculinity as well,
absolutely
as well. Yeah. Dr. Maboea?
I think it also starts in the home. The emotional climate, I think as parents we need to remember, as adults, because it's not just parents, the emotional climate we create in a home, it's so important. If the emotional climate is in such a way that it responds to basic emotional needs, like feeling I have a belonging, I belong, I'm esteemed, I am worth it. I was talking to one person who's very involved in opposition politics, and I was saying to him, I'm not too sure if we need so much political activism. I think our children are crying for fathers to report to their workstation. Our children are crying for mothers. And yes, it's an educational process, and that's why, in next year we'll be starting a lot of parenting workshops so that we can build society from one home at a time.
Well, thank you to you both for coming into studio and trying to unpack what really is such an incredibly emotive and complicated issue. Paula Quinsee, right next to me, she is a relationship expert and psychologist. Dr. Dimakatso Maboea joining us in studio. That's a story that we will be talking about for some time to come still.